I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas-Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Welcome everyone to Mark's Adventures, War for the Crown, Part 2 of... Who knows? We're actually on Part 2 of War for the Crown, although we've done some of the lead-ups to it. So hopefully it will not take 6 episodes to go through it, but if we're having fun, then who knows?
So I believe this is the time when we drop a spoiler warning that this episode will thoroughly spoil events in the second part of War for the Crown.
That's
and
right.
will include commentary on other parts of War for the Crown too. So if you are
Definitely will.
planning to play War for the Crown, this would probably not be the episode for you. But if you're not planning to play it, or if you're planning to, particularly if you're planning to GM it, and you're interested in hearing what we're up to, then please stick around.
That's right. And also, it's a very important, but Linda now knows, except the identity of the Night Swan, so don't say it. Linda now knows all that other stuff that she didn't know last time that, managed to, by accident, keep last stream Elf Tarot friendly. This stream is not going to be Elf Tarot friendly, potentially, because we're going to be able to talk about those last two sort of secret things that we had to not tell Linda.
The Night Swan is just the same as the Day Swan with the little hat. I think that needs to go on our wiki page.
I think it can, because it's not one of the in-character theories about the Night Swan, though.
I know, but I want to have a subsidiary page to the Night Swan page that's Night Swan, that is Night Swan theories by the...
So, for all of you who are watching who don't know anything about War for the Crown except for that you enjoyed listening to us talking about it, we're about to get into who the Night Swan is because we're about to do day 2 of the Tanager Jubilee. And for those of you who love starting at part 2 of something because, part 1, take it or leave it, or who just it's been a while since part 1, we'll do a very quick overview of what characters are in the group before we go into part 2. And I'll explain where we left off part 1 because it was sort of in the middle of part 2, book 2 of War for the Crown.
So my PC is Froggery Iron Temper, a dwarven blacksmith fighter who is really into the artistry of what she creates. You can't just have it be functional for blocking attacks in battle. It has to express your personality too.
Alright. So, that is Froggery Iron Temper, and she has a sister who works for Maxillar Pytharius. Golmader Iron Temper works at the Big Mead Forge in Zemar.
Yeah, their relationship has devolved to the point now where I'm pretty sure that Golmader still thinks that Froggery sent her friends to kill her.
To be fair, Jaroth sent a size small Rakshasa disguised as Froggery's gnomish friend to kill her.
Yeah, but she should still believe her sister.
Okay.
Anyway,
that's why you don't talk about politics with family. Alright, so
especially when you're on opposite sides.
Non-Froggery PCs include Eustace Lothede, the wizard whose parents were killed due to generally getting too mixed up into the same stuff that got Mercator Lothede killed, the previous count of the county that they're currently in.
County Marat.
County Marat. Although they'll only find out that that's what got his parents killed later, because they were just killed in a lab explosion accident. Carla Vinmark, who is part of the Vinmark family, which is the Ulfin noble family that started with the very first Ulfin guards, who is, she is a bard / champion, although for some of this adventure she becomes a sorcerer / champion of the Imperial bloodline, and then back to a bard / champion.
We were doing this during the playtest. It's so free rebuilds at any time was between sessions was the order of the day.
John the Marksman, who eventually rebuilds to not be an archer because he rebuilt so many times, is an athlete archer who does trick shots and acrobatics and is known as a great archer and athlete. And eventually a cheesy spell disruptor.
Yes.
Then there is...
amazingly useful against some high-level wizard foes later in the game.
Cough, cough. Yes. Then there's Niv, the alchemist, who is a obsessed with Taldan history alchemist, who is a member of a group of friends called the Immaculate Circle, a secret society that just likes to find exploits, because we were playtesting and the players like, I want to find exploits in the game. My character's trying to actually exploit things in the game world to create infinite loops and cycles like that. It's like, why not join a secret society that are all doing that? And he said, sounds good. Quingle, our gnome cleric of Desna, and T, our Tien rogue, who was a commoner from County Marat, whose parents also died during a being killed time that Eustace's parents died.
Yes.
Although they died in mysteriously, like a lot of peasants were dying mysteriously. Which we'll find out why those peasants were dying mysteriously later in part 2, book 2 of the AP. So probably tonight. So those are our 6 characters. Where we left off last time, they had survived the Exaltation Day massacre and joined up with Princess Eutropia. And their next mission was that Eustace, who's on the mother's side, made him an heir for a formerly heirless estate called the Bettany Estate, but he would not have been able to legally inherit it due to the law of agnatic succession that is in Taldor, that means that you just don't count women who are in your family tree for any amounts of passing over land and titles, which is a problem for Eutropia, of course. The agnatic primogeniture, first male heir. So now that that was supposedly maybe repealed, Eustace had a supposedly maybe claim that even though not everyone was sure that agnatic succession was repealed, the Count Bartleby Lothid likes Eustace. Eustace is a wizard cousin who he likes and was not going to try to contest his favorite cousin becoming the person in charge of this estate that had nobody taking care of it, that was causing problems. So they came into the Tanager Jubilee, which is a yearly festival based on the idea that Shallan sent a magical bird, songbird, a tanager, to one of the Stavians long ago, and gave this palace to the Stavians, and they've left it to this branch of the Lothids to sort of watch over it, and Eutropia wants it back because she's out of money. Since she's been cut off from the treasury.
Yep.
So Pencil Mage wonders, wouldn't women just rebel over the law of agnatic succession? So they didn't rebel per se, because Eutropia is trying to work within the system, but the current princess, the sort of the plot of the AP starts off when the current daughter of and sole child, living child of the Grand Prince who rules Taldor, has been trying for a while to get it changed so that she could be the heir, so that there was an heir. And she managed to get the Senate to vote for that, except it was close-ish, and during the time when there was a call for a recount, her father sent like a bunch of random mercenaries to start slaughtering everybody, and there was confusion, and it never got the final recount.
Yes. So that's why some people in the country believe that the old succession system was repealed, including the PCs who are side with Eutropia, and others don't.
Also, good news. The general, it's called the High Strategos, but it's basically their biggest general of the military, claims that secretly the Grand Prince made him the official heir by adopting him into the family right before that vote happened, so that it doesn't matter and he's the heir.
Yeah.
And he seems to have it seems to be that he's telling the truth, but people aren't sure, and he becomes one of the major claimants as well. He's very much a traditionalist. We do things the old way, and he is very much an enemy of the old enemies of Taldor, like Kadira, which is a nation that is farther to the east that has conquered a lot of Taldor, and he wants to stoke up war with them because he's worried that otherwise Kadira will attack.
Yes. So then you have a lot of competing, contesting claims for who should have the throne, and there's There's even more so in the beginning where you have all these people who are like, well, I should be able to have it for this reason or that reason or the other reason. So,
and Edawir is right that women have titles that it usually comes by marriage, by being in military service, or even just sometimes because they give them that title when it's not the actual monarchy, because of the fact that the agnatic succession rule is the most followed for the actual crown itself and is less followed down below. Especially when you get into an issue like the Duke of the area that includes Casimir, one of the biggest cities other than the capital, and that technically includes the area we're in right now for this part, who made up a fake military record for himself that caused him to become a hero of the people because he was so brave, he fought for us.
Yeah.
And they all really liked it until they found out it was completely a fake, and they got so mad that they sort of like grabbed him and lynched him. And so at that point, his, I believe, niece, but a relative who's not his daughter, is at least out as far as niece, was like the only one left standing who took the title, and she was originally a little more bookish and was not hoping for it, and she now took the title of Duchess, and one of the things she did was actually smear her uncle more than he deserved and made him seem even worse than he actually was, because she was worried. She wanted it to seem like the people were retroactively justified. It's like, oh, they only lynched him because of the fact that he was like the worst person ever known. They would never do that again.
Yeah. Because
otherwise, if it's just that you lynch someone for lying about a military record, that sets a precedent that is grim.
Yeah.
So, there are situations like that that happen throughout Taldor.
Where were we though? We were talking about we were going to talk about the second day of the...
We sure were.
Tanager
So we were at the
Jubilee.
Tanager Jubilee, and the first day they met some of the guests, including a bunch of new guests that I added that were not originally in the adventure, just to round out the number of people who were there at the Tanager Jubilee. And I believe that we read out the names of some of the NPCs for everyone last time. So to remind everyone, Count Bartleby Lothide was there. He's the guy that they're secretly trying to remove, who is Eustace's cousin. Archbanker Peril, the High Priestess of Abadar. Gul Guzern, the sort of Sheriff of Nottingham type sheriff, who the description the PCs wrote was, this cleric of Abadar is the Sheriff of Barat. He is obsessed with law and order, even for a priest of Abadar. Titus Lothide Cassava, who is an annoying cousin of the Lothides, that it was the PCs wrote, Eustace's least favorite cousin. He's a prideful jerk who cares little for the well-being of others. He always bullied Eustace because of the fact that Bartleby liked Eustace better for being a wizard. Then there's Dame Parthena Crab and Sepsinia. Dame Crab is very loquacious and constantly trying to marry her daughter to everybody. And I'm sure that's what they said. Yes, she loves gossip, truco, and asking anyone with a pulse to marry her daughter is what my players wrote about her.
Yep.
And Sepsinia is Dame Crab's daughter, withdrawn and depressed. Turns out there's a reason for that, though they didn't know it at the time. They're from the town of Moot. We also had additional characters who were from the city of Lothidar, where the party took place. Portia Reston, the general store owner, Lady Lucretia Marthane. The PC said, a mild-mannered noblewoman with a tragic recent past. After bandits murdered her family, she moved to Lothidar, likes fashion, antiques, jewelry, and romance novels, dislikes lawlessness, has a frail physical constitution. Leander Hylas, I added Aediles, a position that works with the Tribune on festivals and buildings, which is an actual Roman position. And then, of course, Titus's posse, Dame Carrot Halbor and Cyrus Cocklebur Esquire. Over in Pensaris, the barony ruled by Baron O'Cara, who is the Idris Elba of War for the Crown.
Yes.
Baron O'Cara has a reputation for being lawful, treating the people in his barony well, and his young daughter, Sally. I added a baronet named Sabina, who likes, the PC said, likes hunting. Is the only thing about her. And an Adal named Theodora, who they wrote is an accomplished bard, and the Adal of Pensaris. Then
Edawir had ended up having to expand the NPCs and shorten the Gala, but still found most NPCs fully influenced by the end. Yeah, there's...
Yep. They influenced...
Particularly with our 7-player group, really needed...
They influenced all of these people. They like, asked... let's see. John decided to ask Lucretia to dance, and then they all decided to influence her. They liked the general store owner because they wanted to get items. That was Portia. They influenced pretty much everyone, even though I added more. And Stakis had this, which is the town that the PCs were going to take over, had the former Adel of Stakis, who was now its honorary tribune, because a tribune is usually the lord who takes care of the area, but that woman, Lady Bettany, who was going to be that, died. Then the person who was assigned as the actual tribune after that happened, because there was no lord, Honor Piscum's husband, died. And so she was just doing everything. And then we have some people who showed up later in that area. For Voinaris, Baroness Adela Voinum, the Baroness of Voinaris. She's a good example of military service for a position. No-nonsense veteran of the Taldan cavalry and tactical genius, according to the PCs. Appreciates direct honesty and despises flattery. And her Baronet Gallius, who they have no information about.
Well, I was mainly the one who was filling things in, so if my PC talked to that person, then they biasly got more.
Yeah, but Yender Mercandus isn't here, I think, because you moved to part 3.
Mercandus moved to part 3 because he was really important.
Linda's character's favorite person at the event, Yender Mercandus, because he was connected to merchants of Yanmas, and she wanted to sell her stuff to him.
Yes.
And she made good friends with him. And then Atticus Vernissant, who was a relative of Earl Calhadian Vernissant, who came to there because of the fact that the Vernissant's holdings are actually pretty close. And Calhadian, as those who played the Pathfinder Society adventures know, was not in a good place after the Exaltation Day massacre that he helped orchestrate, which is not mentioned in War for the Crown, but is mentioned in the Lion's Justice. So, those are some of the people that I added in there. And so, during the first day, they had tea. Oh, wait, no. Did they have tea? No, that's a different thing. Yes. That's what happened when they get back. During the first day, they arrived. They had a tournament and Truco.
You already talked about the joust and Truco.
Did I mention the Night Swans attack already in the first thing? Yeah, I did. The Night Swan attack shot Eustace.
We were on day 2.
We had the Feast of the Victor, and you guys thought the Halfling Charioteers would be assassins.
Yes.
And then T had nightmares from the Sakir Ellers, which is where I revealed that actually T's parents and the other peasants who died were killed by the Sakir Ellers, who was just killing peasants, and Bartleby did not like it, but had to cover up
Ellers really sounds like a butler name, not a terrible
Ellers.
monster.
But Bartleby had to cover up the killings, and actually Ellers also is the one who killed Eustace's parents by... he was not allowed to attack a Lothian, but he did cause a scare while they were dealing with volatile chemicals that caused an explosion. Whoops. That is also how he killed Mercator Lothian, by causing a heart attack in the adventure path. So, let's go to Tanager Jubilee Day 2. But let's see. Oh, it's Alex Goodness. Hey, Alex. So, Day 2 of the Jubilee starts with breakfast, and the breakfast is spitchcock, which is a roll of eels that you sort of skewer your own eel. So, the PCs did that. And then they had that hunt, where the PCs are sort of sent off, and they wind up, the hunt has a bunch of criminals who are dressed up as animals, and if the criminals can be not caught by the PCs, then they get free of their crime. Otherwise, the criminals are caught by the PCs. And so the PCs debated what to do about their criminal. But before they were able to debate what to do, they realized that the area where they were hunting their criminal is where the Iron Lash of Marat, a unique
super powerful
manticore attacked them. And that was, I think one of the first times, I got certain responses from my players during the playtest, they really liked animated objects and how you break their object armor and then they get weaker. And the player of Eustace was like, this Iron Lash of Marat has a ridiculous action economy. What is even going on with this thing?
Yep.
Because I gave it some of the abilities that the one had in the adventure, such as Pounce, aka move and then attack. So they beat that, and they found their guy they were supposed to catch, Mophis of Cascina, and they heard about his they heard about his actual crimes and decided to let him go.
Yeah, I think we, like, helped him escape, too.
Yes.
And then, didn't Titus, like, attack him after that?
Attack who? Moffus?
Moffus, or no, he was... Titus
no,
was
Moffus was the dairy
awful.
farmer who was arrested and placed in the stocks for selling the Count Sour butter.
Yeah.
But no, Titus got a twofer because he captured his own and one of the other ones as well.
That's right.
By shooting them in the leg.
Yeah.
With an arrow. So he got 2, and he was really mad that he didn't win for getting 2 because you guys brought back the Iron Lash of Marat. He's like, well, they didn't catch their actual person.
And we're like, well, we were too busy defeating the Iron Lash of Marat.
And then nobody listened to Titus, and he got angry again. At that point, they had the Feast of the Hunter and the Masquerade, where everybody was sort of going around in different costumes that they picked, and they explained like the reasoning behind them. I don't remember exactly what each person's costume was.
Yeah, I remember.
What was your costume?
I was dressed up as a famous Teldin general.
I think
I don't remember off the top of my head which famous Teldin
I
general
know it was not the one who attacked the dwarves during the Army of
Yes,
Exploration.
it was not that one. It was another... yeah, you're right. It was another Army of Exploration general, but not the one who attacked the dwarves. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's also where there was a production of the Taldor by Wright, a very popular play, and there was Dame Crab's Kadir and Kaligi dance, and more dancing. The Dance of the Phalanx, which was a mini game that I adjusted to have more mini game to it. That I believe Eustace and T as a team won the mini game.
Was that also where there was cards being played? So, no, that
cards
was the previous one.
the previous one.
That's
dancing
right.
and cards.
That was the other
at the end
dancing
of the
one,
last night.
That's right. This was the minigame.
And that was where Valetto showed up at first. That was where this is where the minigame Dance of the Phalanx was, where they had to like plan out. I changed it a little bit so it was sort of like a game where you were attempting to. I mean, it's based. The idea was that you move until the pair of dancers could not move, but the checks that you made were sort of not the same. So I based it on like you used sort of. Certain lore skills and intelligence to figure out what the most optimal move would be to cut enemies off by more, and then you also used sort of your actual dancing ability or dexterity to actually get to do the move once you figure out what the move was going to be as a pair. And
so wasn't it that like you could have in the pair like one person who was more focused on finding what the best move is, and one person who's more focused on doing the doing the moves once you figure out
that's what they were doing. That's why T and Eustace won, because they were the team's ringers. Or no, actually, it was Eustace and Carla. Because Carla had performed dance as her virtuoso performance as a bard. Even when she was a sorcerer, she had performed dance as one of her highest skills because that was just a thing. And dancing is for the ring. And Felena, that's right. Carla and Eustace were your guys' ringers.
Yeah.
And that T, whoever she was with, did. I think T and Niv did pretty well considering they were not the ringers. That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
And also, just a lot of the NPCs thought, because Eustace claimed that everyone else was his servants except Carla, since she was from a high family, it wouldn't make sense. It's just like, this is my friend Carla. So everyone thought Eustace and Carla were together.
Yeah.
Which they were not. Especially when they danced together and won the contest. So they finished off the Jubilee. They had influenced everybody by a lot at the Jubilee. They did not max out everybody, though.
No,
not completely.
We didn't max out Voenum.
Yes, Adela Voenum was not maxed out. I added so many additional characters that the PCs did not max them all out. Also, part of it was that Niv kept getting a natural 1 on Bartleby by explaining things that Niv knew from being in the Immaculate Circle to Bartleby that he thought were cool without giving away secrets of the Immaculate Circle, rolling natural 1s. And Bartleby was like, and he took Eustace to the cellar and says, listen, I can't tell you anything else, but what do you know about this alchemist? I mentioned this in the last one.
Yeah.
I think he might be a spy or an assassin who's sent to watch you or possibly kill you. And Eustace is like, oh gosh. Okay, and he was suspicious of Niv for the rest of the AP. In fact, not this Saturday, but the 1 week before that, the player of Eustace revealed to the group that he had been spending a large number of his persona phases trying to spy on Niv with his people to figure out what was going on with Niv.
But it didn't work because he was trying to spy on the Immaculate Circle.
Yeah, he was trying to find out the Immaculate Circle and infiltrate it with his with his agents, and he never succeeded. And he would always tell the group, "Oh, I'm researching spells," and then he would just not find the spells at the same rate that anybody else did. It was just always like, sorry, you didn't get your spells yet, but Claire, you got your spell, and Sorcerer, you got your spell.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
That's because about half the time he wasn't researching the spells, he was actually trying to spy on the Immaculate Circle. Yes. So, anyway, we finished off that Jubilee. There were a few more relationships that they hadn't quite maxed out, but there are rules for like going to give a day trip visit to different people, and they were able to use that. They also rolled poorly on Adela Voinum and did not necessarily have the best skills for her, and she's a harder DC.
And at this point, we had decided that we were definitely going to go make some visits around to people. And then the result we also had the building up our new estate in Stakis mini.
Right. But I was going to say who the Night Swan is, and I realized we mentioned the Night Swan tried to assassinate Bartleby. So the Night Swan is a local chaotic vigilante who was down with the nobles. According to the party, she is a mysterious figure, hates nobles with a fiery passion. She attempted to assassinate Bartleby at the Tanager Jubilee, met with Raven, Fox, and Scarlet Tanager, a.k.a. Raven is Eustace. Raven is T, Fox is Eustace, and Scarlet Tanager is Carla in the woods. So it's just a very down with the nobility vigilante.
And by this point, Carla was a redeemer and not a paladin, so she was good to participate in.
Because we added redeemers
dual identity
into
deception.
the playtest. And so here are true facts about the Night Swan, according to my group. The Night Swan is a former Gultan revolutionary from the previous government, coming to Taldor to start a Gultan-style revolt. The Night Swan recently robbed a merchant caravan. The Night Swan robs from the rich and gives to the poor. The Night Swan is the leader of the Beggar Wood. That's a wood area that has a bunch of like thieves who live there that are the nemesis of the sheriff. The Night Swan is actually part swan, part lion. The Night Swan has teamed up with the General, the legendary catfish of Lake Pansaris. This means that Jeek the Hermit must be the Night Swan. The General is the Night Swan. This means that 50 years back, the Night Swan drunkenly scuttled a young Duchess's pleasure barge. Duchess Valetto is actually the Night Swan. Sepsinia is actually the Night Swan. Eustace is actually the Night Swan. Eustace's summoned monsters are actually the Night Swan. T is actually the Night Swan leading a peasant revolution. The Night Swan is a group of halfling charioteers who sometimes put on a trench coat and stand on each other's shoulders to look like different humans. That's why no one is sure of the Night Swan's gender. The Night Swan is a spirit of Lachlan Lake, hunting because Count Bartleby Lothid stopped his father's practice of sacrificing virgins to it. The Night Swan is Mayor Jotavis, the agent that Eutropia sent to influence Yanmas. The Night Swan is a mysterious red masked figure with a red bird mask in Yanmas. The Night Swan sent a threatening letter to Eustace. The Night Swan set up a poisoned arrow trap to shoot Bartleby during the Tanager Jubilee.
I think the Eustace's summoned monsters theory is the...
And then apparently Edwin said the two of the trench coat before we got to the theory about the...
Well, we started with legit theories, and then I decided that anytime anyone said that the Night Swan was actually blank for the rest of the campaign, I would type it in there. That's how correct. We got Eustace's summoned monsters.
Yep. People thought it was actually Eustace. There was a later part where...
the Night Swan is really busy, Joe.
Yes, where the Night Swan was meeting with what actually were T, Eustace, and Carla, and they were plotting a plan where they would kill Eustace. That just one of the people who was plotting the plan to kill Eustace was Eustace.
Yep.
Anyway. So at this point in the adventure, the party needed to go back to Stakis and see how messed up it was. The answer was very messed up. And then go around to the different areas and try to build up support for overthrowing poor Bartleby. Who is not a very good count. and should not be poor Bartleby in both situations.
Mm-hmm.
When the PCs got back to Stickus, they couldn't leave without a tea invitation from Dame Crab, and that was a week after the party. They also judged a series of crimes, which I can't remember exactly when they came in, but I'll tell you guys what they did, because there's a bunch of crimes that are written in the adventure. So the first one is...
Pretty much every time we came back after a trip, there was another crime, and then we were like, how are there this many crimes? There's like 40 people here.
Some of them were queued up because nobody had been there who could deal with them. So, let's see. There was Lucinia Mag, who's basically a local problem child. Let's see, is Lucinia Meg listed under
I think she's listed Stakis.
Yeah. She's unpopular, known for being foul-mouthed, assaulting people, and stealing, according to our wiki. And she was causing problems, and I think that the PCs forced her to work in the forge with Froggery, where she would be under supervision as her punishment. Then later, there was Portimer of Stakis, who was accused of poaching, which that one's a problem because of the fact that poaching from the Count's land is supposed to be punished by death. And how did you guys... I think that what you guys did was that you gave Portimer, like, a job to help fix one of the buildings that you guys were fixing, that you forced him to do as public service, and then paid him a stipend.
Because I think we paid him a stipend to support his family, but then we also, like, he had to earn off the cost of buying another deer or something like that. We're like, we'll replace the deer and you pay for it or whatever.
Right. And then, also, you used a legal lore check that Eustace wrote to show why legally that was...
Like the land was ambiguously whatever.
Is an acceptable option compared to the execution.
Wasn't there something about like the map?
It didn't piss off Bartleby.
Wasn't there something about like the map where like this particular section of land is technically?
But it was clear that he had actually crossed the place that he said.
That right, that's what we tried to do and it didn't work.
Then the next one was Anliel Oakleaf, who was known for wanted for bewitchment and trespassing, but was actually a druid who was just trying to help deal with the disease rather than causing the disease. That
she's a witch.
The PCs managed to convince the townsfolk that she was not a witch, and by uncovering the connection between the tainted water and the illness, and then succeeding at a check to convince the townsfolk that that's what was happening. And then the last of the crimes that they had to deal with was Partulus Bane, who was wanted for murder. And he was a half-orc that everyone hated in town, and he was also just, like, not doing himself any favors when he came in. He was like, yeah, I hate you guys, too, to everybody. But the PCs eventually discovered that the person who was supposedly killed by Partulus Bane had died for a blow to the head from something round that was hoof-shaped, more so than a weapon, and they realized that... actually, Suitor's mule, Chauncey, was the one who killed Suitor using speaking with animals to gain testimony and convince the townsfolk that they were legitimately using speak with animals. They managed to convince everybody
that he was innocent.
Pretty ironclad that actually it was the mule. And then, even then, they needed to make a diplomacy check to convince everybody
and we
that was the
case. Had it be that Night Swan framed Portimer in order to observe the PC's judgment.
Aha.
That's pretty cool. So, and what did your PCs do?
Yep, our PCs always manage to be relatively lenient without pissing anyone off too much.
Yeah, well, our group definitely had both strong chaotic tendencies and strong good tendencies. So we definitely didn't want to. Particularly follow like the really harsh laws and stuff like that.
Speak with animals.
Almost more handly in trials than speak with dead,
says Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. it depends. Speak with animals, they had. Speak with dead, they did not have.
Yes.
So that's how they dealt with all of the trials that happened throughout this part.
Mm-hmm. There was the tea, which was...
Yes, the tea happened after about a week. So
yeah.
they came in and they started upgrading the estate, and they spent a lot of their own money to upgrade the estate. They also quickly figured out that the weird hauntings that were happening in the Bettany estate were actually caused by a brownie and a bunch of Domovoy named Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod.
This was the first problem in the in this adventure path that we solved with alcohol.
Was this really not the second one?
Oh, no, you're right. It was the second one. You're right.
The party just kept doing, like, the Zelda quest where you trade alcohol for something that's more valuable.
Yes.
And this is one where they gave alcohol to them, and in exchange they got a relic sword.
Yeah. So then we decided that alcohol was the most valuable thing, so anytime the adventure dropped alcohol, we needed to not sell it, we needed to keep it and wait for the right time.
And then they gave awesome wine to a Baroness of Delavoinum in exchange for an extremely lucrative trade deal with Baroness Voinum that was worth way more money than the wine. And so they always managed to trade alcohol for something better than the alcohol that they traded.
Well, it was funny with them too, with like the brownie and stuff, with Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod, where we just came in and it's like, wow, there's these weird haunted messages that appear on the wall. They're asking for milk and honey. Okay.
Alcohol.
And it was like milk and honey, and then it was like, and alcohol. So we're like, okay, let's just see what happens. And then it turned out that the place wasn't haunted after all. And
also, their names in the adventure are Wink, Blunk, and Nod. A nude or Nod, and I just made them Wink and Blink and Nod because that's obviously what it was meant. So it might as well be literally Wink and Blink and Nod. So yeah, the party befriended them. They started rebuilding Stakis, and they eventually, I think, bought all the upgrades. Yeah. One of the things that they did before they went to the tea party was they went to the Stakis pump house, where they fought the Lurker, which was like a variant disease corpse-spewing Audiog.
That pump house was gross.
There were ghouls in there, which they kind of melted with AoE heal. And then the Queen Without a Face, the female Gast ex-paladin of Razni, who they managed to defeat. And even after she was slain, she would rise again. So they managed to convince and pay the Temple of Abadar to bury her on consecrated grounds to try to prevent this.
That wasn't the urn. That wasn't the urn that we had to pay a lot of money to get shuffled around, was it?
It was.
Oh no, that was the urn we had to pay a lot of money to get. Okay, that was the urn we had to pay a lot of money.
You cremated her completely, and then later to rest in consecrated ground.
Yes,
that's correct.
That was one of the dangerous beings that we made the temple. We paid the Temple of Abadar large amounts of money to help us handle.
Edovir's group invited Bartleby and others to a hunt around Stakis to make up for it, and said they'd enforce laws more carefully in the future. Festival events are handy, and throwing money solves all the problems. Yes, they definitely had some festivals, and they started rebuilding Stakis like right away. They put a lot of their own money into it, and were pretty selfless towards helping out the area, so they wound up stacking up a lot of points for that. They eventually did go to over to Moot to have their good, friendly tea party, and that's where they discovered that actually, turns out, Sepsinia is so pale and withdrawn because a lovelorn of her previous fiancé, but not really because she rejected him, is just creepily...
Lovelorn are these weird, creepy heart spider monsters.
Yep. They sure are. I had to explain what they were today in the office as well. When their name came up. But yes. And it was there having its own creepy tea party in a gazebo, in a haunted,
wasn't
horrible
the way
area.
That we ended up finding her that, like, John snuck out and started following her?
If you guys have been paying attention to the first part, you know that John is a creep stalker who is constantly stalking around. And he was just stalkily staying awake and following her because he was suspicious that Sepsinia was the Night Swan.
Yes.
And then she got up and went into the gazebo, and so he actually woke other people up. Or no, actually, he went up on his own to follow her because he thought she was the Night Swan. So eventually,
didn't he get lost in the maze and come back or something?
He got lost in the maze for a while, and then Quingle, I think, woke up
and then noticed that he wasn't there.
John wasn't there, noticed that something was going on in the gazebo, and woke everyone else up. And they went in.
Yes, because I definitely remember the, oh gosh, is John stalking Sepsinia? What's going on here?
John had constantly asked for money and stuff, from Eutropia, when everyone else was like, we'll help you. He was like, what about the money? And he was just trying to do things like that. And so John kind of got lost in the maze and only got there right when they were defeating the Leveler and the zombies, and he just turned around at that point, since the fight was already basically over, and went to Dame Crab. And immediately took credit for being the first one who figured out about what was going on and asking her for payment.
Yes.
Which was pretty funny. So, Edward said, did your players ever get to Sato? So...
Which area was Sato?
Sato, they did go to. They went to everywhere... at least once. Sato is one of those small towns. I can't remember which one, but
it was one
you
of
guys
the
have it on the map. So yeah, there was this creepy set piece where zombies were just coming out of the hedges, and the Leveler was doing these crazy effects, and the PCs managed to take it down, and John took the credit. Which the PCs were probably not going to ask for money, so it's a funny way to give them the reward of the bust of Dame Crab.
It's like, oh, I'll give you a great reward. Here's a bust of me, so you can put it in your house.
Yep.
And we're like, wow, okay.
Yep. And so the PCs definitely did go to visit Baroness Voynam, and they made a trade deal there for grapes. And I think that was when they went to one of those two smaller towns. Let's check the map of County Murad, which we have also on the wiki.
Yay for maps of County Murad.
So yeah, Sato's the one to the north of Voinaris. That's what I thought. They did go to they did go to Sato, and that is a tiny town that has an issue, which is that it was the one that the wolves were coming to get revenge for killing the wolves.
Oh, it was the wolf revenge one. Okay.
And I significantly upgraded the problem from the wolves, but the PCs annihilated the wolves by using Invisibility Sphere to just go sneak up Invisibility Sphere and negate aroma on everybody. Then they sneaked up right next to the Alpha and did a literal Alpha strike where they came out and took down the Alpha Halmash, and the other wolves were uncoordinated, and the PCs fought them until they just ran away. And took care of the wolves, which Baroness Voynam was not necessarily upset about either. Because they decided that when they were going to go to Moose, since the bridge was out in the other direction, they went around through Lothidar. They went to Moose because first, even though they had to pass Voinaris because they didn't have enough time.
Hold on a second. Edward has a question. I found it very untied to the rest of the adventure. I kind of had to push people there. What would you suggest to help joining it into the story a bit better? Are you talking about Soto specifically? Or...
I think so. So yeah, Soto is pretty random. The reason that my PCs went there is mostly because of the fact that it was very close to Voinaris. They were trying to find out where the Night Swan's real base was, and maybe it's Soto, and check out what was going on there. And they had succeeded on the rumor check. So there were certain rumors that are ones that you can see, and they got the one that Soto hasn't paid their taxes in over a year, from what I hear. They always seem to have some new excuse. Baroness Voynam has been stepping in to cover him, as I hear it, but the old girl can't keep Lothi's soldiers from collecting their due forever. So they got that rumor. They're like, that sounds suspicious. I wonder what's going on here. So I would maybe say to people who are having issues connecting it to emphasize that rumor, or put it like as one of the earlier rumors that people get. And then if they don't go there, it's not a big deal because it's not the most interesting encounter in the adventure for sure. But yeah, my PCs were curious of that rumor combined with just generally trying to find the Night Swan.
Well, one thing we did on the wiki in this campaign, because there's a lot of more sandboxy things, is that every time we had a quest lead, then I put it down in a quest log. So then it would be like, oh, this was a suspicious thing. This is a lead, maybe, and then we try to investigate everything.
So the PCs wanted to go to Jambus once they were at Moose, since they were most of the way there, but they realized they had to get back to the to Stakis to keep giving more direction to what was being built and to help with the harvest before that happened. So they were not able to go to Jambus that time. And they decided to build the bridge and go from that direction instead.
The Gold Canyon Bridge.
Yeah, the Gold Canyon Bridge.
We kept thinking that there was totally going to be gold there, and we spent a lot of time looking for gold there. We did find like the fin of the gold.
The snake.
The gold snake thing.
It's supposed to be created by. People all thought they critically failed when I was like, it was created by alchemists who were trying to make gold or something like that.
Yeah. We still have that thing's fin.
That's true.
Because we were still convinced that it would be valuable at some point. We haven't actually found a use for it yet. And
they also did the little. There were like these little flavor moments. Where are the little flavor moments? Oh yeah. Were they in a sidebar? Oh yeah, where there's the brother against brother, where the two brothers are arguing over the purchasing of a calf. And the hungry veteran, and the lost child, who couldn't find either of her mothers, and the mother-to-be, where they have to help deliver a baby. So we did all of those, and they managed they dealt with the harvest, and what they did was they basically paid out of the party's own money to make sure that the tax collector got all the taxes. And then after that, as it turns out, our good friends, the Raven and the Fox, may have, unrelatedly to this situation, stolen back everything from the from the tax collector.
I mean, it's just mysterious that all the money from the tax collector just vanished, and then the PCs just happened to have the money that they'd given to the tax collector back in their treasury.
Because they knew that they couldn't give it back to the town, because that would be very suspicious that the town had all that money.
So then the PCs paid the taxes, and then some of the PCs secretly stole the money back from the tax collector.
And some of the taxes were paid from the town, but mostly from the PCs, and then the PCs threw a festival using that money.
Yes.
Harvest festival, everyone. Nice work. And they did. They all went and worked in the fields and got people to be on their side. So during this time, also the Raven and the Fox and the Scarlet Tanager were meeting with the people of the Beggarwood, who told them, "We'll be on your side if you decapitate Golguzan and give us his head." And there were a lot of these meetings, and the meetings that they started having the meetings with the Night Swan, where the Night Swan's like, "Look, this Eustace character is clearly a little thief through and through, and I know what he's really like, and that he hates the common people, but he pretends to like them, and he's building up public support." And they're like, because they were like, "Do you like Eustace better than other people?" He's like, "No, he's the worst thing possible because he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and we actually need to kill Eustace because otherwise he's going to just make the common folk complacent towards the nobility, whereas at least Bartleby is stirring them up with how horrible he is." And so eventually they managed to convince the Night Swan to let it play out between Bartleby and Eustace, and then kill whoever was the survivor between those two. And they also further convinced her that in his death, because of the fact that the Fox, aka Eustace, delivered a manifesto that Eustace had actually written that was about a peasant uprising, because Eustace was actually pretty in favor of pretty extreme stuff. It's like, I found this that Eustace had written, and the Night Swan's like, "Well, that's interesting. I'm sure it's a fake, but once he's dead, nobody knows. So once he's dead, we can actually say that he died." Publish his manifesto and say he died because of the fact that the nobility killed him for having this manifesto, and he could be a martyr to our cause. Which they're like, okay, yeah, sure, Night Swan, he could be a martyr to our cause. So they were having a lot of these meetings. Investigations started happening. It took a while for the investigations because of the fact that in the AP it says Golgazern comes at certain amounts of suspicion when the PCs earn too many loyalty points to do a lot of sketchy stuff. But the amount they have to earn goes up the higher their relationship with Bartleby, and it was very high. So what I roleplay that out is I give a little cutscene where a cutscene back in Lothidar, Golgazern says, "Sir, there seems to be some other irregularities from Sterkis. The tax collector got attacked on the road on the way back." Or I would say whatever it was that caused the points to go up to the thing, and then since it says in the AP that Bartleby is like, "Oh no, don't worry," Bartleby was like, "Oh, don't worry, Eustace has this taken care of." Gold, you don't have to go check it. Gold's like, "Are you sure, sir?" He's like, "No, it's fine."
And then we were all laughing because, like, we knew that we were totally going to be undermining Bartleby. I know I at least felt a little bit bad there. It's like, oh, Bartleby, you're going to see that your faith in us is so misplaced.
Yep.
Gull's "I told you so" is going to be rather intense.
Gull eventually came down, and the PCs managed to barely hold him off from his investigation, but he still came back with mild suspicions, but no, that something was going on in Stakis, but not that the PCs were involved, but that maybe they were covering for their people because they were trying to be nice to them, and he wasn't sure yet. And the PCs didn't give him a second chance because they shortly thereafter did their coup. But before that point, so Duchess Valetto came to visit their good friend Carla. And Duchess Valetto has some very specific wording on what she does. So what you have to understand about her is that she's actually a trompe l'oeil that was created by Panavar when his dear Valetto, maybe the only person he ever actually loved, died. And he wanted to bring her back, and he created a trompe l'oeil, which is a painting of her that has much of her personality and memories, but is missing, like, the deeper parts of love and emotions. They're superficial. She knows she loves her husband Panavar, but she can't remember how they met or even the names of their children, for example. And she can't describe why or what her passion means and grows increasingly hostile if pressed about it. She isn't hostile, according to the adventure, at least not unless treated rudely, presents a threat thanks to her inquisitive nature and past as a spy. Oh, she definitely found out a lot of the PC's secrets. She's likely to see and hear things. While she won't immediately turn the PCs over to her duller nephew, she's all too happy to use that as a threat to get what she wants: attention, comfort, political influence, and the PC's protection from her nephew when he invariably seeks her out once again. She will not return to the Palace of Birdsong willingly. So it assumes that, like, eventually that the PCs find a discreet way to return her to the Palace of Birdsong, and Count Lothid's care unharmed or tricking her or have to fight her or something. But the PCs just managed to never trigger any of her real problem causes and did all the things that she wanted them to do. They came real close at one point where Carla's like, "I think I'm going to tell her this thing that would have really ticked her off." And they're like, "No, I won't. I'll do this other thing." And so just eventually, like, and Carla was not, as a redeemer who was, like, previously a paladin, as her second class with multi-classing, redeemer of Felena, she was not sure about this, like, secret identity of the Scarlet Tanager and how to do this, and Duchess was like, "Oh, I'll help you make your costume." And she's like, "It's supposed to be secret. How did you know I was doing this?" And like, "Oh, don't worry about it. This stuff is a trade secret." And it didn't say all of this exactly, but I had her as a it said she was a spy in the past. I had her as, like, from the Kitharodian Academy, so she talked about the Kith and Carla being a bard she liked. And so yeah, they just, I mean, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure Duchess Valetto is just still in the Palace of Birdsong at this point. I
mean, we didn't cause any trouble. Carla, she seemed to be mostly Carla's friend, although Carla was a little skewed by how much she just seemed to know everything.
Yep, and the PCs went to Pensaris, which is where our good friend Baron O'Cara lives, and that's where they decided they had to fish up the General, the legendary catfish.
Of course we did.
Which they did. They also got into this giant, like, several-hour-long debate with Atratus, who is a swan maid from the Lachlan Lake, who really wanted this really large area to be a nature preserve that they clearly could not make a nature preserve because of the city, and otherwise wanted, like, a bunch of money that was going to be the tribute, but,
Didn't we move a road?
You moved a road that she really didn't like, and gave her some of the tribute that she wanted, and you also helped by destroying the giant ochre jelly that was sent to kill her by Bartleby. That was
quite the fight.
The PCs picked perhaps the almost best tactics for killing it, but actually worst.
Yes.
Which was that what they did was once Niv realized that his bottled lightning, everything that's in its splash would split regardless if he hit or missed. He started throwing them, and they just split it up into, there was the original ooze, and then what was left at the end of Niv's bottled lightning routine and all the other lightning that they could do was some of them that were 1/32 the size of the ooze, and some that were 1/16 the size of the ooze. And that means there were fewer than 32, but more than 16. I think there were about 24 of them. Then Eustace, as he always does, threw a fireball with Froggery right in the middle of the fireball, which we've talked about a lot of times on the show as Eustace doing.
Yes.
And hit all of the oozes, which are terrible at their reflex saves.
And so we're thinking, oh yeah, we're just going to finish all of them off and this is going to be great.
So, but there are some problems, which is that it really did kill most of them. But the 1/16 oozes who made a success on their save, which like a few of them did, were still around. And the 32nd oozes, which got a critical success on a natural 20, also survived. So there were still like 7 of them left.
Yes.
And then they knocked
all
Froggery
attacked Froggery, who had also taken damage from
knocked
the
her
fireball.
unconscious, got her to what should have killed her.
Spent a hero point.
It was back when the hero points did not spend all of them to not die. It was 1 during the playtest.
Yeah.
Spent a hero point. I had given her another hero point for going along with this cockamamie scheme, which she also spent when I got her down to being dead again from the oozes and to not die. And then the oozes stopped.
I was still like dying 2 or 3.
Yeah, you were dying 3. Like so. Yeah, I got you to dead, and then dying 3.
Yes.
Then the PCs easily killed the rest of the oozes.
Yes.
Like, they had almost all the ones that were left were at very low hit points. They had almost killed them all. So it was almost an amazing scheme.
I definitely used that in my Persona phases for a few phases in a row. Is the thing that Frog was bragging about to get heroism.
Yep. So
not gonna get sagacity for that plan, that's for sure.
They managed to get the subtle mask. I was thinking they might not get the subtle mask because they were not too taken with the Swan May's claim of the encroachment and the fact that the Fae were owed this payment by Bartleby that they didn't come due. But they eventually did get the mask. Alright. So, after a while, they managed to finish the bridge. They headed over there and they found that snake. And they saved the Cleric of Abadar.
And it was time to go visit Baron Telis, one of Eustace's favorite relatives, who hadn't been heard.
He's not a relative, but he's just his favorite Baron.
Fair, he's not related. His favorite Baron.
He's the Baron that Eustace likes.
Yeah.
And so, they saved that one Cleric of Abadar who lowers the cost by helping of the Temple of Abadar so much that it's a ridiculous amount, so I just described it like that one Futurama episode where Hermes reorganizes the labor camp, so the one Australian guy who's at the labor camp does all of the work. I was like, yeah, this cleric is just building this entire temple, and he's working 16-hour days.
And we're like, maybe you should rest and not completely...
It's like, I must pay this off.
I must pay this debt. It's like, yeah, but if you... Okay.
Yep. So they saved him, and they headed in, and they found Baronet, what's his name? In because there was New Jambus. Newtown. And that's where they found Baronet Caphridius Vort, whose last name is the same as Vort, the guy who randomly never loses any of his influence during the War for the Crown on the big influence map of who controls what area. Who I said was related to Caphridius Vort, because why not?
Yep. And
they talk to them, and they find out that something terrible is going on back in Jambus. There's horrible spiders there, and the PCs went there, and they found out what was going on with the Tealist bandits, aka the only remaining people who were trying to, along with Master Frater Mosley, who Eustace remembered as being sort of, what was he again? He was the Baron's sort of steward who grew up with him and now is sort of his keeper. And when they found out that the Baron had been transformed, according to different rumors of different people, that it was either a witch turned him into a monster, or many people thought Martella Lothide used evil alchemical mutagens to do it, because there are a lot of rumors about the black sheep of the Lothide family that were pretty negative, that were in the area. And so they eventually found him and his spidery self, and they managed to...
You put him on a cart.
So they super fireballed his fake area that he was illusionarily pretending to be from, and...
Oh, wasn't that the fight where, like, he was fireballing and we were fireballing and everything was fireball forever?
Everything was fireball forever, and there was counterspelling of fireballs with other fireballs.
Yeah.
And we saw that clearly Eustace had learned from Baron Tealist some of his battle tactics as well. But eventually they knocked Tealist unconscious and took him to Casimir, where they found...
We had to, like...
they found a
put him on a cart.
A cleric of Shellen to...
Didn't we have to, like, put him on a cart?
Do a ritual to remove the curse.
And then, like, wake him up a few times a day to give him, like, food, and then he only wanted to eat, like, partially rotten animal carcasses.
That's correct.
So then we had to like, hunt animals
also
and let them partially...
the canals, which you would fix with the pump house to get there a little bit
And we
faster.
had to, like, try to avoid having anyone see us with this guy and our giant pile of stinky animal carcasses.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was a big doing. Eustace was like, this is a lot of money. Nah, it's a Baron Tealist.
So they managed to save Baron Tealist from the terrible curse that may have been put on him by Martella Lothide, but it wasn't. It was the Sisters of the Indulgent Dreams. The PCs never found that out. Just for lulz. One of the sisters was just like, meh, this guy, I'm gonna mess with him.
Oh, okay, yeah, we never figured it out.
Yep. There's no way to figure it out. But it was. Anyway,
well, good thing we got rid of them, because they were jerks.
Not, the last one is still alive.
Yeah.
Somewhere out there. So, then, just as usually happens in the adventure, when you get enough points, Baron O'Cara comes to meet with everyone and is like, what's going on? I figured out something's going on, and PC's spelled to him, and by then they had gotten enough points to get Martella's letter from Casimir. Also, just around the same time as this was when they went to Casimir with one of the PCs to bring Baron Tealist there, so they met with Martella at that point to talk to her, and figuring out that, well, remember that Grand Duchess I told you guys about earlier in the episode, who has a sort of a position of, her uncle got torn apart by the crowds? She's gonna hang back and then retroactively say that the PCs are fine if they succeeded overthrowing Bartleby, but not if they don't.
Yep.
So the PCs say, okay, well, that's enough. Everyone's pretty much on our side. I mean, Baroness Voynam may be the most traditionalist and lawful, but she hates the Lothides to begin with, which didn't help Eustace to ingratiate himself.
Especially because Eustace is chaotic, and she mostly remembered the trouble that Eustace got up to
Eustace as this irresponsible child.
Yeah.
And a Lothide. But everyone was pretty much on the PC side by this point, and they didn't quite get the full support of the Beggarwood because they refused to decapitate Golgazern. But they had, and they also didn't have the Night Swan like coming out to help them, although she agreed to kill whichever of Eustace or Bartleby was the last one standing. That didn't wind up working out. So the PCs then went into the final phase of part 2, where they go into the Palace of Birdsong and attack. And that starts off by being attacked by Caden, Killen, Aridin, Abadar, and Shellen. A.K.A. animated statues.
Yes, so many statues.
And they went right up, they fought them, and they managed to then go into 0 other encounter areas because some of the guards abandoned them because they were heroes of the people. All Pal's guards abandoned the Lothita state, firmly believing the PCs and their masters are the rightful heirs. The PCs can persuade Count Lothita to surrender peacefully by means of a verbal duel. Yep. So they managed to go from there to no other encounters up to where Bartleby was, which, by the way, was not his room, but they happened to go exactly to the right place to find Bartleby next. Where Bartleby was just dejectedly being up there, and they had a verbal duel with him, where Bartleby was doing fine when he could use logic, which is the one that he liked and that he could deal with, but more and more the PCs managed to throw him off his the edge and into emotional appeals, which he was weaker at, and that he didn't just as he was just getting more and more desperate and more emotional.
Like, Eustace, how could you?
Like, Eustace, you don't understand. They're going to kill me. They're going to kill you. I was trying to protect you. If I surrender now, we're dead. And like things like that. And he had to roll with his lower verbal duel stats on emotional appeal. But that was all that he had left. And they managed to beat him down in the verbal duel. And he's just like, alright.
So then we realized that, you know, he may have been saying, there may have been some truth to what he's saying about being dead. So we took him into custody. Because we realized that, like, If it looked like he just surrendered, he was saying, like, if it looks like I just surrender here, then they're gonna kill me. So we have to make it look like I didn't. So, yeah, we captured him.
In the early phase, John being a mercenary or not, T and Eustace agreed to work for Eutropia, but it was always not clear whether they were too chaotic and might do a peasant rebellion. The closest that actually happened to Eustace leaving the group came later on when Eutropia moved in. Because of the fact that Eustace negotiated the verbal duel on, like, you will be a political hostage. That means that, like, in the real world, a political hostage is, they're imprisoned in a place, but they're treated well, and he's like, you'll have access to your arcane books that you can study, but you'll just not be able to get out. And, he almost quit when Eutropia let Martella be the one who was in charge of Bartleby because of the fact that Bartleby had abused Martella, and Martella looked like she was going to be very vindictive. Eutropia managed to convince Eustace on the grounds that Eutropia is like, I know, this happened later on, but she's like, I know Martella very, very well. And I think it's important for her to be given this responsibility. And yes, she might do some things at the beginning, but I think she's going to quickly realize that no matter what family has done to you, that it doesn't feel good to do that to family. But if she wasn't given a chance to do that, she wouldn't be able to get past her issue with Bartleby. And that is why I put her in charge. It was not out of neglect or not understanding the situation. Yeah. And Eustace was basically like, okay, but if you're wrong, you're going to have to change it, or that's it, because Bartleby was many things, and he was a big problem, but he saved my life when I was a child, and I promised him this when I got him to surrender. So that was an interesting part that did not happen quite yet. So they had convinced Bartleby, and
so there weren't many that we had to fight.
The other thing they had to do, other than get Bartleby to talk him down, was they knew they needed to deactivate the teleportation circle, so Panavar didn't just teleport in and kill everybody. And Bartleby was fine with that because he did not want Panavar to teleport and kill him for surrendering. Didn't
we also have to deal with Titus too?
That was next, because Bartleby's like, okay, so they went over to Golgazard, and Golgazard's like, what's going on? And Bartleby says, I've surrendered, and Gol kind of almost didn't want to, but that was the legal thing that had happened at that point in time, so he did.
Mm-hmm. He really didn't want to, but he had to because that was the legal thing, and
yes.
he's super low.
So Bartleby showed them which way that the teleportation circle was because he wanted it disabled too at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they came across Titus and his posse, who wait for the PCs at a spot that's right outside the tower where the teleportation circle is by chance. They don't know that that's why. And Titus is like ready to fight the PCs, and it manages to be like the most epic letdown for Titus because of the fact that Titus was ready to fight, and he's like, well, do it, and why is Bartleby here? And the PCs are like, oh, he's already surrendered, and it's over, and you don't get to fight us. He's like, whoa, how could you surrender? No, that you've betrayed us all, and we're gonna fight. And then Bartleby's like, go away, Titus. Nobody wanted you here to begin with. You're just getting in the way. So he wanted to have this epic fight to be the PC's rivals, to be this big thing, but in the end, his anticlimax of not getting to even fight and just having to walk off was very satisfying for the PCs.
Yes, because because as we mentioned in the past episode, like Titus bullied Eustace pretty badly as a child.
Yep.
So it's like, for Eustace,
his
very much
comeuppance
like,
of being
yes,
you're just so insignificant. Yeah. Just leave. And so they went into the tower. They found and destroyed Carr. The first attempt at Prince Carius, which they did not know at the time. Actually, never put two and two together on. Then they fought Ellers, who escaped into the ethereal plane, but had persistent acid damage from an acid arrow that killed him on the ethereal plane.
I wonder if there's any meaning to the fact that you're telling me these other things we never figured out, but not the story of the Night Swan.
Mostly just because of the fact that you cared about the Night Swan.
Yeah, I do.
Whereas these two things are just arbitrary things that were connected into the main plot that you didn't know and didn't care about, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's it.
Yep.
You cared, so you wouldn't want me to tell you who the Night Swan was, whereas you didn't know this, and so
maybe after the campaign I'll ask you.
Yep. It is miraculous that the actual Night Swan did not make it up onto that list of theories, given how wide of a net you cast.
That's an interesting hint. Now I'm going to try to figure out who the Night Swan is, based on what I know of the campaign.
Okay.
Anyway,
the PCs made it up and destroyed the teleportation circle. That caused them to win the adventure. So, they got like a pretty full victory, and they went to pretty much every place, including some that they did not think you would go to, such as they did not just go to Soto. They also went to
what was that other tiny
town?
Other
tiny town that is not Cascina, the tiny hamlet that has Urel Tausin, the aristocrat wizard. Distant Voynam cousin in it.
Well,
and they also went to that one place that was like abandoned after the family that was in it was killed, that was now Rowthorne Manor. They went to Rowthorne Manor as well. And it seemed too abandoned, so they eventually gave up on it. Depending on where you look, the Beggarwood and the Lion's Mane wood are like the same wood that have almost the same information on them, so I sort of consolidated those down into one forest because that seemed like a mistake. But yeah, they went to every location, they found everything, they built everything, and they convinced Bartleby. Stump Monkey's PCs are half gnomes and use speak with animal. On goats, the villagers had to figure out what was up in Soto. Then they adopted the goats. They now have a young fainting goat named Sir Nobrit, who accompanies them.
I love it.
That is hilarious.
So cute.
Yep. So the PCs managed to finish part 2. They had a lot of relics at this point, and they were doing well on the Persona system,
which had just started up as we that just started up once we
at the beginning of part 2. And so they moved on into part 3 once Eutropia moved in and had her discussion with Eustace. Unfortunately for the party, Eutropia was correct, and the AP even says the thing that Eutropia said. it also made Eustace have slightly more regard for Eutropia, who he mostly viewed as a major idealist who had no way to actually fulfill what she wanted to do. Is like, oh, I'll be in charge, and then everything will be great for the peasants. It was like, well, she was shrewd enough to understand Martella here, I guess. But Martella did quickly sour over the idea of lording it over Bartleby and being in charge, and Bartleby got his just house arrest with his books that he could study. Yeah, I figured that half meant that half of the party members were gnomes, and not that you were using a half gnome, half version of the half elf.
Yes.
So at that point, that's when the party was called upon for their next mission, which was to go over to Yanmas, where they Froggy was excited to meet her good friend Yander Mercandus from part
surely
2.
when I meet our good
because
friend
he
Yander
said that he had been in Yanmas for a while.
Yeah, surely we can just have a nice conversation about art and trade and armor, and we're not going to wind up rivals in any sort of complicated political... Oh, wait.
So, they were called to go to Yanmas because it turned out that Mayor Dratavis, who the party kept thinking was the mayor because his name is Mayor Dratavis, and I was like, no, it's Mayor is his name, but he's not.
M-E-I-R, yes.
Yes,
it was
not
where we kept getting confused.
Not the mayor.
Yes.
His name is Mayor. There is a guy who is sort of like the mayor, who's the baron of the area, but he's not Mayor Dratavis.
The mayor is not the mayor. The baron
problem
is the mayor.
Bad things had happened to two people.
Yes.
Mayor Dratavis, who was Eutropia's sort of like talking head, who was Eutropia in Yanmas, and the pro-Eutropia baron, who was sort of like the mayor of the town, was having horrible problems as well at the same time.
So we got
it got conflated to where it's like, was the mayor Dratavis, and so I need some slight adjustments, especially since like Frogry got along so well with Yander Mercandus, where I made him be overall more polite towards the PCs. And there are a lot of problems in Yanmas, so Yanmas, really the major problems, other than the reason that the party was sent, was that Eutropia's main spokesperson there, Mayor Dratavis, had stopped sending in any information, and there were bad things in Yanmas, and Martella heard rumors about a cult that was worshipping Eutropia's dead brother, and that Eutropia would freak out if she heard about it, because same way Eutropia knew about Martella and how she would react, Martella knew how Eutropia would react. So it's like, do not tell the princess, figure out what the heck is going on with this cult of the Twilight Child in Yanmas, and see if you can figure out why Mare is not reporting, and also try to convince Yanmas to back Eutropia and help them out. So the party heads up to Yanmas and has a nice travel montage, and eventually they get there. There is a halfling official named Gregor Hamble, who the party was very, very convinced was an evil assassin.
Well, that's because we hadn't met prominent halfling NPCs at this point who weren't evil assassins. It was pretty much evil assassins, more deceptive evil assassins, and then there were also the halfling charioteers, and then that was it.
Yep. And they got to meet with the Mercantile Council, which, since the Baron was not there at the time because he was too busy being sick, having nightmare plagues, were Lord Rudig Autun, who was just considered himself an authority on culture and fashion, and Frogry liked talking to him about fashion type situations. Lady Amber Goobel, who is a half-elf importer and exporter with her finger on the pulse of the common folk. Lady Carmelio Rawls, who deals in armor, weapons, and equestrian gear and has a lucrative contract with the Talon Horse. Chief Enumerator Abrun Paliator, the High Priest of the Church of Abadar in Yanmas, who is very concerned about this free healing that the Cult of the Twilight Child is giving, because it will ruin the economy to just give free healing and devalue the value of healing so that temples can...
His debates with Quingle, the PC cleric of Desno, were pretty hilarious.
Yeah, people really de-emphasized his thing about free healing. And then Lady Haliana Cobbin, the halfling, lawful good female halfling fighter aristocrat who owns several large orchards and ranches. Her father was a chief manager for an heirless human aristocrat who bequeathed her lands and her title to her favorite employee, making them the only halfling family to sit on the Mercantile Council. Carla, who was super suspicious of all halflings after the assassins, rolled a natural 1 on her knowledge check to determine that actually the halflings murdered the heirless human aristocrat to get that land and were secretly evil.
Yes.
And that it was a ploy, and they pretended to be good and Erastolite and lawful good, but really it was all a ploy for halfling superiority, which was great because Carla was sort of already saying that, and then her knowledge check determined that everyone else was like, no, she's nice, everyone likes her. It's like, yeah, but I critically succeeded.
Critical success versus critical failure.
And there were some associate council members as well, and of course our good friend Yander Mercandus, who starts off with like saying some really nasty things about Eutropia in the adventure. Fortunately for me, the investigation, which Mercandus has his own investigation to the problems of Yanmas, which are, in short, bandits are attacking constantly, and there's a plague of horrific like sort of vor dreams, cannibal sex dreams that people are having, where they are eating and sleeping with a family member or close friend that they would not want to do that with. So, yay. Mercandus and Mare, in my take on it, they were rivals for their support, but they both agreed this was a problem, and they had a sort of joint investigation, but Mercandus's people were doing their thing, Mare was doing his own thing. They didn't completely trust each other, of course. Yeah. And Yander was like, oh yes, Mare's always wandering off on his own.
No, you can't trust him. He's not reliable in this.
No, he was like, he didn't try to throw Mare Dratavis under the bus. He was like, no, Mare is my good friend, but unfortunately he's not here. And also, he tipped off the PCs to the fact that Mare had uncovered some disturbing rumors that caused him to be shaken in his belief of whether Eutropia, that he had told Mercandus back before he left that he was worried about Eutropia, and that he had been looking at some things in the archives, which the PCs were able to find out that a thing that Mercandus planted that made it look like he had found out that maybe Prince Carius did not die from a horse accident, and that perhaps Eutropia killed him to become the heir, which the PCs forgot about promptly for 3 parts until they eventually found out that Carius did not die from a horse accident, and forgot about the evidence that he might not have died from a horse accident that had been covered up, that Mercandus had been talking about in this part. I sort of added some of that in. I
remember that there was something about that, but then there was something about that, and that's why I was like, wait, didn't Eutropia have something to do with that?
Yeah, and you knew she was like, did she have something to do with that? And that's why. It was because of Mercandus.
Okay, I didn't remember why I thought that.
It's exactly why in the real world spreading disinformation works, is because you eventually remember that, but you don't remember that you got it from Yander Mercandus.
You don't remember you got it from Yander Mercandus several months back.
You were like, I thought Eutropia may have done that, but...
Well, I thought Eutropia thought she had done it.
Thought she had done it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So, but I did get to give a sort of nastier Mercandus speech that was in there, because what happened was he was being nicer about it, and then one of the PCs, I think it was John, just in super... No, it may not have even been John. One of them super insulted the Imperialists, which are the faction supporting Pytharius that Mercandus was represented. The loyalists being the ones who support Eutropia. So ridiculously, the PCs took the low road first, and he's like, well, I was trying to be nice, but in that case... And then he just said the thing that in the AP he normally says. But he was friends with Frogry, and he didn't want to be mean. So, especially since it makes him look better, it makes the PCs look like uncouth barbarians. So the PCs got to the end of that with at least an invitation from the Chief Enumerator to talk about his theory that the Cult of the Twilight Trial was the true danger because of their free healing.
Yes.
Which the PCs were being like, this is our lowest priority ever. They really, really deprioritized it, even when a creepy guy in a red bird mask kept telling them to prioritize
Well, we sent our agents to, kind of sit in on the services and to slowly gather information.
They sent Persona agents there, and the Persona agents described what happened during the service.
But we had the disappearing military people and the ridiculously terrible
the Talon horse got
and the bandits and all that kind of stuff. So we figured this peaceful church would probably be the last thing we needed to investigate, because the other things seem more pressing.
Yep. So, as usually happens when they begin the investigation in this part, they went out and were attacked by these really messed up townspeople who had been having nightmares and were sleep deprived and were trying to attack them and failed miserably.
Yes.
But it looked like the PCs were beating the crap out of these townspeople. They had gotten like a lot of the rumors by succeeding well with some of the council members who tell them rumors about the town, including the fact that they knew that there was Karadina Farkin, the conspiracy theorist, that they should check out. The new restaurant Savories, which they were heard about twice, and they were like, this must be the most important thing in the city. They knew about the rumor of the Dryad of Hedge Hill, and the weirdo in the red bird.
Oh, yeah, I remember that too. The weirdo in the red bird vest is like, you guys went to Savories first before investigating this?
Yes. They investigated, they also investigated conspiracy theories and, most random thing before that. And then the people wonder where the bandits might be hiding. I put my money on the ruins of our Vestkar Manor. It's isolated, or Vestikar Manor. It's isolated. So they found a lot of leads. They had just a lot of things they could do. The charmed townsfolk attacked them, and they were very confused by this. And they kept saying that the white ram with... the white ram with black eyes was the one that told them to come murder the PCs to stop the dreams, because the PCs made the dreams.
Yeah, and then we kept being like, what is this white ram? Why are these randomly this white ram that's around doing this?
And then they were assigning their persona agents. Some of them went to sit in on the service.
I think we tried to track the white ram, and we lost the white ram's trail.
Yep. Quingle sent some of his sacrifice agents to join the official investigation, as Mercandus called it, aka Mercandus' investigation, with the Cozen Bravos, where they were mostly they were investigating, but also Quingle's sacrifice agents were also very hardcore, because this was the same player who in Jade Regent made the sort of like ridiculous sweatshop full of buffs for everybody who was always working constantly, and so we had sort of a meme that player made all their NPCs work a lot, and the sacrifice agents were the ones most willing to sacrifice. Yeah. So when they came back and they're like, these Cozen Bravos, they investigate for hours during the day, but then at night they go to the tavern and play games and drink.
Yes.
Instead of investigating more. People are like, oh yeah, of course his sacrifice agents are very hardcore.
They're gonna be like, that's suspicious because they have lives outside of work.
That's right. That's right. So they managed to go, the adventure just sort of says, whenever the PCs come to the Chief Enumerator, assassins attack him then, but I decided that the PCs had to come at the time that the Enumerator invited them, which it was not clear they were going to actually show up, or else he would just be killed.
Yeah.
And then they did. They actually did show up at that time, and they managed to stop the assassins, which is where they met. One of the assassins got away, but the other one they managed to capture and hire that assassin to work for them, but not assassinate people, because they wanted to redeem the assassin. And they were like, why do you kill people? The assassin was like, do you know how expensive it is to own property in Yanmas? It's very expensive. You have to do... a girl has to do jobs too, and sometimes assassination jobs pay well, and we'll hire you then.
We'll hire you then. It's like, you just have to know, well, you can work with us, and don't kill people.
And she gave them the tip that it could have been Asimar who hired, because the person who hired them had dark vision, so it was probably, it could be a half-orc or an Asimar or someone who might have dark vision. Because the PCs brought up, because the Chief Enumerator is like, it was the cult of the Twilight Child hired these assassins because they know I'm on to their free healing. And the PCs is like, yeah, probably still isn't, but okay, sure. And they listened to him, and he talked for a long time with the PC's cleric of Desna about the healing, and the PC's cleric is, but it's good, right? Because you're giving healing to everyone. It's like, but what you're really doing is you're giving them the healing now that you have, but you're undermining the ability of other temples to pay for the support network of continual healing, because then people don't go there for their healing. They don't want to pay it because they hear they could get it for free, and they'll just queue up to get the free healing, meanwhile not getting the healing that they need in a timely fashion, possibly dying from an infection, or spreading diseases that they're not getting removed from the other places because there's only so much free healing at the time. Defunding the non-free healing so that those temples can't perform some of the other tasks that they need to perform and that they use those donations. And he was trying to explain why the free healing actually is the biggest danger to the city in the long term, more than any of the.
So they have like a half-hour-long debate about about magical economies and the cost of healing spells.
And why the free healing was the real danger in the long term, even though it seemed like a plague of horrible dreams where you eat and sleep with your loved ones, or bandits and missing talented horse seemed like they were the real problem, but it was the free healing.
Yes. None of the PCs agreed with.
No, they did not. So they decided to go and check out the conspiracy theorist, Karadina Farkin, and actually, first they were like, "This has been enough for the day," so they decided to go to sleep. And Carla, with her connections, got them a room at the best inn. But it turns out that was in the area where there were some dreams, and the PCs had some of those horrible dreams. And so they were like, "Oh gosh, this is really bad." So the next day they decided to go to the conspiracy theorist next. And they went to the house of the conspiracy theorist, and they managed to figure out something was going on, and they got in there, and they found out that she'd been replaced with and being impersonated by a half-orc assassin who was, like, somehow mind-controlled into killing her, and with all of these lead sheets and dream catchers and different conspiracy theorist stuff, and they were like, "We're sleeping in this lead house.
Yes.
We do not want these dreams again."
So instead of staying at the fancy inn, we all crammed into this house with the half-orc assassin
and the dead body
and the dead body of the psychic.
Which she was not a psychic. She was just obsessed with occult conspiracy theories. And they eventually dumped the body.
Yes, we did. I remember having a debate about how in the part of this investigation where we didn't want to seem suspicious, how we could least suspiciously dump the body.
But it was still pretty suspicious. Yep. And so, meanwhile, also, John decides to just stand outside and wait for Savory's for a long time. And he eventually got to the front of the line, and there was not enough space at a table for all of the 7 PCs, so they decided John should pick who gets to eat with him because of the fact that he waited for the line for, like, most of the day just by himself, and he picked some PCs. They went in and had a delicious meal at Savory's. It was so fun, and that's what happened.
We were all out of character, very suspicious.
Yep.
But in character, the PCs didn't find anything.
Yep.
And they just enjoyed their food.
That's right. And let's see. They also found Zan, the vigilante with the red bird mask, who was on their list as possibly being the Night Swan, who was talking about the abomination, and it's like, "You've got to go to the Call of the Twilight Child right away." And they did not.
Yes.
And he was not thrilled. "Your petty politics are but a momentary concern," and he kept trying to get them to go, and they would not listen to him. Later, much later, like last week, Eustace's player would say, "That crazy bird guy was completely correct."
Yes.
But it took 3 parts before that happened. In any case, they did go to Hedge Hill and found that the Dryad was actually Galinda Johnreck, who they thought was funny that her name was Johnreck because John was a person in the party. And she had been suspicious because of the fact that she was one of the Taldan Horse, and it seemed like she had been betrayed by her own commander and left to be killed by some kind of horrible wizard who was turning everyone to stone, who she thought Eustace was the wizard turning everyone to stone. And she got on well with John, who was also suspicious. It's like, "Yeah, Eustace might be. You should be suspicious of your own allies." And it's like, "Yes, my allies betrayed me," and so they agreed that maybe it was Eustace.
So John and Johnreck got along well, which is part of what was funny.
Johnreck decided, and John was the archer, and Galinda was an archer, so she decided to learn from John. And meanwhile, also starting from the beginning, Carla started a mystery cult of Felena called, like, the Cult of the Enigmatic Ring.
Yeah.
That was meant to sort of taunt the Cult of the Twilight Child by being another cult of the thing that was just obviously copying them.
Yes. But then it, like, legit became a mystery cult of Felena.
Yep. It legit became a mystery cult of Felena that they were using it to hide people for a while in Yanmas and to provoke the Cult of the Twilight Child. And that was just totally a thing that they did. So eventually, especially after talking to Galinda Johnrack about the fact that Orvestikar Manor is where, like, a bunch of the Talon Horse got turned to stone by Eustace, possibly, or some other evil wizard, the party decided to go check that out, because that seems pretty suspicious. So they went to Orvestikar Manor, and they found out that actually, well, they found this very excitable artist person.
She was a fan of Froggery.
Her name was Arisfina, and she was a fan of Froggery's work. She's like, you're the Froggery Iron Temper?
And this was the first fangirl that Froggery had ever had, so naturally she decided that this person was awesome.
And she kept trying to get Eustace and, I think, John to pose in very specific positions and turn them to stone, but that didn't really work. And then, at that point, Eustace and John wanted to kill her, but Froggery was like, she's my fan, and Arisfina sort of, like, was doing well against the party when they started attacking her, and the party sort of retreated, but she didn't necessarily want to kill them. She just wanted to get people...
Also, Froggery refused to fight because she didn't think we needed to attack
her. She wanted to get people to finish off her sort of depiction of Elson Kindler's book's final scene. And she did manage to turn Eustace to stone during this time because he kept trying to attack her. And so she agreed to unturn Eustace from stone if they agreed to stop attacking her and to, since they were grabbing bandits anyway, maybe give her some bandits to finish off her exhibition, because Froggery agreed to do a joint art exhibition with Arisfina that they would put on, and then at that point, Arisfina agreed that after that was over for a while, when the PCs got high enough level to do Stone to Flesh, which would probably not be for a long time, they could come back and unpetrify the people once the exhibition was over.
Yes.
So, that happened.
So friendly.
Yep. So, then the PCs were able to trail that over to figure out like sort of where the bandits were coming from, since that was sort of on the Vestikar Manor was on the way.
Yeah.
So they decided, let's do that. They had sent out their agents to so in the original adventure, the place where the dreams is coming from is super obvious because the adventure basically just tells you immediately. All the dreams are just in the location and people just tell you where it is. Yeah. But I knew my players would not be satisfied with that, especially since I had thought of a way they could get it without just being clobbered on the head, and they had immediately thought of that, which is making a scatter plot of all the people who had the dreams and
then using that to try to triangulate
patterns of where it might be based on smaller clues. So I let them do that, and they sent out their sort of agents from the Persona system to make those scatter plots.
And that was really cool. Agent. But that's why we didn't know where the dreams were coming from.
So they didn't do that yet. But so they went out to find the bandits while their agents were doing that. And sure enough, the so-called Kadiran bandits were the mystic Talon Horse who were not turned to stone. And PCs managed to sneak up. They put out a fake caravan that was meant to distract whoever was watching to go attack the caravan. And then they managed to sneak around while those people were sneaking out to attack the caravan, go in and attack the base before those people could come back. Which took out the encounter that is it took out the Tallgrass's approach encounter, K1, from the area.
Mm-hmm.
The PCs then managed to sort of... I think that they sneaked up and took down Jaundice Stovell, the guy with the giant hammer, and his plant friend.
Invisibility sphere, by the way, is something that we were at this point using pretty darn consistently. It was
invisibility sphere, follow the experts, quiet allies.
Yes.
And so they sneaked up and Negatoroma. They sneaked up. They took down Jaundice and the Grassling in his room just without being noticed, and then they managed to take down at that point, the east side of the lower floor. I think the east side is where Jaundice was, yes. They sort of had to fight most of it together, but they beat it pretty easily. The west side of the lower floor, and then they went up, and no one escaped to alert Jaliesa and Anua, so they went up, and they fought Jaliesa off. And she eventually, they convinced her to surrender. And she agreed to give them information that they needed against the Grey Kingmaker, who set her up for that, because she's like, you know what, this is it. And it says she fights to the death in the adventure path, but it also talked about how in the adventure path, before it said that she was realizing that there was a problematic situation. So she convinced the PCs to let her go, but she said, if you want, you can try to find me. And if you find... Because they were like, you might get found, and then it'll be a problem. It's like, if you can find me, despite my ranger skills, I will agree to your crazy plan, which their crazy plan was letting herself be petrified and buried in the ground. But she's like, I think that the Green Kingmaker will destroy the statue of me to try to tie up a loose end, and I think I can hide myself better than that. Also, throughout the negotiation... Eustace kept threatening to kill Anua, the ram animal companion of Jaliesa, and eat it.
And the rest of us are like, why are you doing this? Well, we decided to go with the sort of aid on his intimidate check there of being like, you know, this person is unhinged and no one can control him. Because the PCs literally were like, why are you doing this? This threat is completely unnecessary.
Yep. And so they got her agreement and found out that she said the reason she agreed to do this is because the funding seemed like it was actually coming from the legitimate military, and she thought this was important for the military. She was kind of underplaying her evilness in this scheme to an extent, although she is lawful neutral supposedly in the adventure. But gave them information on the Grey Kingmaker, who she still doesn't know because she got the information at drop point and has no information about who it is. But it was half of what they needed when they combined it with something they got later to figure out more about the Grey Kingmaker. It does say if they capture her rather than kill her, they might discover she regrets her treachery, etc., etc. So we kind of did that, even though it says she fights to the death.
Yeah.
And she escaped, and then the PCs decided that in order to cover for her, Frogry and Arisfina made a fake statue of her being turned to stone.
Yes.
And then reported her as having been turned to stone. So, basically...
That statue was then completely shattered, right?
Oh, yeah. So, what happened was that they were like, and then maybe we'll find who comes after the statue. They came back and to Yanmas with this information about the bandits.
And then Arisfina was really upset.
And when they found the information about the bandits, Yender Mercandus was like, They found the information about the bandits, and they said, oh my gosh, and we caught the leader was turned to stone. And, but meanwhile, some of the official investigation mercenaries went up to go attack, Arisfina because Yender Mercandus had found out that the Medusa was a part of the lead, and in an ensuing fireball, explosion, managed to destroy some of the statues, including the Jaliesa statue. in this incident, and then the PCs were like, why did you send these people to attack her? She was fine. It's like, what do you mean she was fine? And then they explained, oh, we figured out about her. It's like, you haven't been communicating. Yander Mercanda's like, you haven't been communicating with me at all. You didn't tell me any of this. Then, because they did it in front of the council, so Yander's like, by the way, we've discovered some very disturbing things, and in the interest of communication, I'd like to point out, your party dumped a body of this person like, into the lake, and a bunch of things the party had done that actually were very suspicious, and the council's like, oh my gosh, the PCs are very suspicious. And then the PCs were like, oh no, wait, there was a reason that we did this, and they were sort of backpedaling, and like, okay, we'll tell each other everything from now on in advance. Yeah. So, they agreed to tell each other in advance, because the party was also like, we're really close to figuring out about these dreams. It's like, well, then we'll definitely, if any of us finds out for sure, we're going to give advance notification of figuring it out, so that we all, because Yander's like, I have people who are also searching for it, and I don't want them to get killed if you do a raid and they're in there, and they're in there. Yes. And the pieces are like, okay, sure, we'll do that. We're our bad for dumping a body, and you're bad for sending those mercenaries that accidentally blew up the statue of Jaliesa. Yeah. So the PCs did manage to narrow it down to the butcher shop. They actually kind of knew that that's where it was already, but they were sort of playing that close to the vest. But they did inform Yander Mercandus, and I'll point this out now at this point in the story, which is that Yander Mercandus is the Great Kingmaker. He's the one who got these Taldan Horse to become bandits, and who were together with the people who were causing the dreams entirely. Is all his plan. The Twilight Child cult that the PCs are just not dealing with at all, that is not on him. But he is completely the one who got the military funds for from Pytharis to give to the bandits, and who set up this dream thing. Before
we get into all of the stuff about what happened with the dream stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be next time.
Yeah, we're at 2 hours now. Yeah. So
I know, but before we go, the last thing is, I'll just say, he absolutely told all of the people in the location that the PCs were about to come. But fortunately for me, Soraya, the leader of the next group, is just like, her personality and her tactics and what's in there is just so much of like, oh, whatever, I don't really care. Oh, this is just so boring, that I just decided that she was just like, her response to being raided, message like, get out of there now, they're coming to raid. Oh, whatever, this is so boring. Ugh. Yep. Yeah, ugh is like definitely one of her catchphrases. So, so she was still there because of that fact. And as you may know, if you've read or done the adventure, the PCs had an angry wife of one of the few married husband and wife couples in Pathfinder Adventure Paths. Fathri Stobel, the wife of Jaundice, who they had captured, was after them on her flying drake mount, but she never managed to catch them until they got to the city and did not have a good point to attack them. Yes. So they never had to fight her, but she sure was after them. And we'll start with the horrible cannibalistic dream people. The divs that the PCs found, Parika divs, were the ones behind it, that were the white ram with black eyes and the black dog with red eyes, and there were just different animals with different colored eyes that the PCs were looking for.
Altro said I was lied to. Altro's come back. I told you. Oh, you remember that woman.
Elftro was here the whole time, or Elftro was lied to and remembered that woman?
I know, I did tell him to stop, and he didn't stop.
Okay.
I told Mark we should stop here, and then he didn't.
Oh, okay.
So now Elftro heard spoilers. Alright, we're done with that. No more plot.
But we didn't say that we were done.
Yeah,
Who lied to Elftro?
So people told him that we were done, because I said, let's stop here.
Alright, so.
And then you kept going.
Alright. Well
then. No one lied. Mark just couldn't stop talking.
What? I wanted to stop at a point where I wouldn't have to do a giant recap the next time, because we were cleanly finished with that portion.
I love you, dear.
Okay. So, let's finish off.
All right.
Let's finish off with YouTube. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.